Hello, everybody. It's Katie Hemphill here. So happy to be here with you today to talk about sacred activism or embodied activism. Just some different words to put to this experience, right? That is how we show up in service to the world beyond ourselves. Now, if you know me and the work I do, everything I talk about in the world of embodiment is about being in a space, right? This embodied space where we are connected into self. And as we become ever more deeply connected into self, we open to deeper, stronger, more expanded connections with the world around us, the greater web of life we are all part of. So when we speak to the world of embodiment, again, we are holding space, we are being in practice of having those experiences where we are connected to self. We are working on our own healing, our own light-filled transformation, so that we feel better in our bodies, we feel better as our whole individual selves, so that we are able to experience more joy, more love, deeper fulfillment, all those good things that we want for ourselves. And we are doing it in connection to that which expands beyond self. So when we talk about something like a selfish act, right, taking care of self, what we're actually doing is sort of dissolving this use of the word selfishness. We are dissolving this boundary between what's best for me or what's best for the world outside of me. We're dissolving that boundary that separates the two. And what we're doing is coming into alignment, holding that space. If this serves me, if it truly serves me, not my ego and like what I want right now, but if it truly serves what I need for my greatest joy, deepest fulfillment in this life, if it truly serves, then it is in alignment with what serves the world we are all part of. And this is sort of the premise, the foundation. Sometimes I speak to it as a bit of a working hypothesis. You know, I'm a scientist, trained classically as a scientist. So it's a little bit of my lab. Like, can we move from the world, this belief system, these constructs, these ways of being, where it's me versus you. It's in my own self-interest or it's in your self-interest. It's in my self-interest or it's in the self-interest of the earth. Can we move away from this and can we embody a way of being that owns the interconnectedness of everything and owns the fact that we are all here living our own individual sovereign paths as we are connected to the whole world, the whole universe, the whole web of life that we are all part of? Can we do this in a way where walking our own highest path is the same path that serves the highest evolution of the world? Again, maybe you don't quite believe it yet. Maybe you come in here from a deeply spiritual space and you're already super on board. Maybe you're like me and you've made your way from the world of science and engineering over into the world of spirituality and you're working to bridge the two. So you're open to that sort of path, that sort of idea, that way of being. But maybe you're not totally convinced, so you're here because you want to explore and practice and see if we can create this as our reality. Wherever you're at, I invite you to be here with whatever beliefs you hold, whatever practices that you hold, as we dive into this conversation on what I would speak to as sort of part of this embodiment path, that is the embodied activism or the sacred activism. If you don't like the word activism, I don't love that word because of the way that our world has used it. But this way of being in the world that is in service to that which is outside of self. So whether you think of yourself as an activist or not, it doesn't matter. What we're doing here is speaking to how we show up to the world outside of ourselves in service to. So for example, I am deep in this reforestation project right now. If you've heard my story, my backyard forest here in northern New Mexico, much of it burned down when I was in kindergarten, along with part of the town. It burned again when I was in high school. It's burned many more times than that, but those are kind of the two biggest fires, totaling, I think, 200,000 acres, enough to just completely wipe out the forest up in the mountains. And thanks to climate change, the forest isn't coming back. Here in northern New Mexico, we're kind of right on the edge of the high desert. And this forest that we burned down is now, in a state where, this fire was so hot that it killed off all the trees. It killed off all the living beings in the soil that make it fertile. And it's taken more than 2 decades to kind of come back into a state where it's, fertile again. There's shrub oak, there's locust, which are these thorn bushes. There are some aspen trees. But except for the areas that we actively replanted, which created these beautiful little sections of ponderosa forest, the ponderosas didn't come back. So I'm now, actively working on bringing more of that forest back, and that has me deep in collecting pine cones, collecting seeds, incubating them, seeing if I can get them to grow. I got a few little saplings last year, but only one survived. So I'm working on, increasing those numbers every year, and part of this project in service to the forest. And I bring you this example because what I want to do in this video is talk about a new way of being in service to the world that is different than traditional activism. I spoke words to how I don't really want to use the word activism because I've personally been attacked by activists, right? And how many have had the energy of the activist come at you in this way that's like, this cause is so important to me, and I demand that this cause is so important to you and that you give me money and time, or else you're a terrible person. I've had that sort of energy thrown my way. But activism, coming from this very masculine world, right? We talk here about how we're moving out of these times of patriarchy being these times where the masculine model, a masculine way of being, is what has taken over the world. And the other half of what I believe to be the truest form of the human experience, that feminine side, has been suppressed. It's been actively fought, pushed down. It's been demonized in many ways. We're living in this time where the feminine is rising, right? We've had these beautiful feminine movements. We've had all these beautiful souls working in Kundalini energy forever, right? There's all these different ways that the feminine has been reemerging. Coming together, holding space for a balanced world where the masculine shows up in its highest form in the way that best serves, when the feminine shows up in her highest form in the way it best serves. And we get to hold them together and live from this space. So when we talk about activism, right? Activism, which to me speaks to a very heart-centered space, right? This very feminine, heart-centered space. This is my service to the world. I want to help, right? Feeling that as a very feminine energy. But how it's been tied up in this masculine model. A masculine model where things are very linear. We have to make sense of it all. We have to see each action step. We have to calculate it all out, make sure we have it all dialed in right. And then as we do that, we get hyper focused here. Right? Think about this trait of the masculine. You know, maybe you tie it specifically to men, but it doesn't have to be men, right? This hyper focused way of being. I can speak to how I worked in corporate engineering for a while, and it was almost like everybody there was here, this hyper focus, like I'm right here pouring everything into what's right here, which is powerful and it gets things done. But what happens if what's best for the world is actually right here and we can't see it because we're so focused right here? So this traditional activist energy that brings so much fire, so much fuel, right? This is passion driven. This is heart driven. But we bring it through in this masculine model. You know, think about that like fiery sword coming through. I'm going to make this happen. Which again, can totally serve when it's aligned. Can totally serve when it's connected in to that which truly will serve the world. But if you're always here and you're always in this kind of fighting energy, how do you know? How do you actually know if what you're doing is what's truly in service to the world? So what I teach is an embodiment practice that we can bring over into our embodied activism that has to do with this dance, this flow between the feminine and masculine. Yes, absolutely. If you want to get something done in the world, bring in that activist energy, get focused, bring that fire. Get it done. And then take a step back and connect into everything. But the question is, where do we start? Where do we start? And I know we live in a world today where so many people, right? We live in this world where we have so many people who want to make the world a better place, because if you're awake, you're aware, you're paying attention, you recognize that our world is on fire. We have created hell on earth. And so, of course, millions of people are interested in being in service to this world. But what happens, we go to the internet and we have all these causes being just flung at us. Oh, we should be able to show up over here, right? In the vegan movement to help climate change and the welfare of animals. Oh, and we should be able to show up over here in the whole mess that is recycling and use of plastics. And oh, we should be able to show up here in how much we use our cars and our emissions. And oh, we should be able to show up here in the... And what happens, right, is you take all this firepower that's channeled here to a cause, and it's thrown at somebody in a way that it's too much. It is too much for any one person to give all of themselves to all causes. It's too much. We simply do not have that bandwidth. So what embodied activism, sacred activism is, it doesn't begin with that fire sword in action. It begins by taking that step back, doing the embodiment work to tune into self, grounding in, connecting in. I am grounded, I am connected, I am holding space for what I can do in this world to truly show up with as much as myself as possible in a way that serves. Where can I show up in life to bring as much as myself as I can in a way that serves? Holding this question, continuously holding this question, knowing that the answer changes. In one moment or one point of time, you might be drawn to give 100% of yourself to a cause. And the next month, now you're guided to give 10% of yourself to that cause, 50% of your attention to nurturing self, and the rest of it to all the other places in life that you've been neglecting because you've been pouring so much of yourself, right? And then the next month, maybe you have more of you to give to that cause again. But since you're paying attention, you know that that cause has shifted a little bit and that you need to show up in a little bit different way. So again, feeling into this flow of the masculine and the feminine, that masculine focused energy. When is the time to bring through that fire sword? Be in action. Go for it. Bring your mind on board, bring your heart on board, bring all the resources you have on board to get that thing done, to solve that problem, to bring through that solution, to create that thing that's going to bring more light and joy and beauty into the world. And then is it time to take a step back, to ground in, to breathe a little bit deeper, breathe a little bit freer, listen a little bit more or a lot more. So this is sort of our playground of experience here. When we speak to, again, embodied activism, sacred activism, or whatever words resonate for you. Again, if you don't like the word activism, throw it away. It's just a word. It's a word that comes with a history. And maybe you like that fact, maybe you don't. But here in this space, we're going to continue to use it as we hold it in, with this intention to transform it, to bring in that feminine energy for it, to unite that feminine energy with that powerful masculine energy that activism holds, and to do it in service in truly creating a brighter, more beautiful planet Earth. So if this is speaking to you, I want you to know that at this time, when I founded Upward Slopes and We Are the Forest and all the different spaces, the different names I put to these spaces, embodied activism was really loud then, and I've been holding a lot of space for it, but I haven't really had, all the dots connect to really be able to bring through a space that you can get involved. And that's changing now. It's changing because it's now really loud to bring through a space to share in community, to share in circle, devoted to our embodiment work, our greater embodiment work, and also hold that sacred activism piece. So my We Are the Forest spaces, I have different spaces I'm bringing through. But what I really want to speak to you right now is these circles. These circles. And if you're watching this around the time I'm recording, spring 2025, know that these circles are going to be coming your way soon. We're going to kick things off with the spring equinox. Get circles started in April. So make sure you're signed up to the newsletter. Upwardslopes.com will get you there so that you know the details. If you're watching this later on, I'm hoping, intending that these circles are actively going, so the details for how you can find your next one will be on in the notes on the page below. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me today. As always, if you're still hanging out with me here, hit that like button. Make sure you've hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment. Let me know what's sparking in you in these conversations. Let me know what's up for you. Where is your heart aligned? What acts of service, what in the world is speaking to you? Are you like me, where your heart is with the forest and reforesting, regeneration there? Are you like me and you're super into composting right now? What's up for you? I want to know. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, you guys. I look forward to catching you in whatever the next space is that we find ourselves in.